city that I did is Santiago de Compostela. Mi ciudad es Santiago de Compostela. Santiago de Compostela tiene una emblemática española gramática costa. El luego es el español y el gallego. Esta ciudad tiene muchos festivales. Santiago de Compostela es una muy ciudad histórica. Nuestra próxima excursión definitivamente debe estar en Santiago de Compostela. St. James arrived in Santiago de Compostela on a mission to spread, with instructions from Jesus to spread the gospel to Spain. While he was in the region, he was sort of a missionary, but when he was returning to Jerusalem, he was beheaded. So his followers returned his body to Spain, where he was buried, and 2 of his followers remained there to guard his burial, but they eventually died, and they were also buried with St. James. After centuries, all the records of his location of his burial were lost. St. James's tomb was discovered by a hermit. He claimed to have seen lights and sounds from woods, and he took that as a sign from God. So he went and he reported it to the bishop. So the bishop set out a search, and where the remains were said to be seen in the forest, and they did find the tomb. In the tomb, there were 3 separate bodies, and one was higher than the other 2. The other 2 were sort of together, lower underneath St. James. So he declared that it was the tomb of St. James. As you can see, this is the original tomb of St. James. The church was built over the remains. A small church was built over the remains. A dozen monks were supposed to supervise and guard while there was construction. The monastery for the monks and the community that was building the church is really what began Santiago. You can't really see it, but Santiago's right here. The small church was destroyed by a Moorish army in 1997. They left the apostles undisturbed, though, so they wouldn't damage them. The present cathedral, as you see here, was actually constructed in 1060 through 1211. The inside was predominantly Romanesque, as well as the outside. But in the 16th and 18th centuries, the Baroque transformation was on the outside. So the inside is still very Romanesque. During that time, the remains of St. James and his apostles were hidden because of an English invasion, and they were lost. But during the Baroque transformation, during construction, they did find the remains somewhere else in the cathedral in 1879. One of the main festivals that they celebrate is Holy Week. It's Easter. There are many street processions, and it goes from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday. During this week, people carry statues of saints on floats and wooden platforms. The atmosphere is mainly of mourning, which is sort of odd for it being a festival, but on Easter Sunday, it's mainly the celebration day where there's carnivals and music and dancing and lights and colors, and throughout the entire region you hear church bells and cathedral bells ringing. Okay, you can see. This is
the feria.
Yeah, the feria. It lasts 10 days during May. It offers the insight claimed Celtic roots of Galicia. It's mainly Celtic music and dancing. The dishes of Galicia take center stage, so mainly about food and culture. The main dishes of Galicia are merluza, which is white fish grilled and baked in olive oil with paprika, Chipriones, which is squid, Popo a la gallega, which is octopus, Vieras, which is scallops with tomato, red pepper puree, and cheese, Gambas al ajillo, which is shrimp and hot oil, garlic, rabbit, which is, it's just simply rabbit, like there's no special name for it, and gallego, which is a casserole of potatoes, turnips, ham, and pork sausages. The Fiesta of St. James. This is the largest and most important festival of all Santiago. It begins the night of July 24th with a fireworks display that goes literally for hours, and it's by the cathedral. The festival is a bunch of mixed religions all sort of put together, and cultural celebrations. There's music and dancing, street entertainment, concerts and carnivals. The highlight is the national politicians and dignitaries converging on the Obradorio Square, which is right in front of the cathedral. It's a huge open square for tourism, and just it's like the courtyard pretty much. Is an appeal to the St. James, for peace and prosperity. The current city of Santiago de Compostela consists of a population of about 100,000. It receives thousands of visitors every year, so it's a really big tourist attraction. The city is relatively small for having so much tourism. Pretty much when you are touring, you will do most of your touring by walking because it's such a small city, and everything that you'll be wanting to tour is mainly in this region, like downtown, sort of around the cathedral. There are bus lines and taxi services that can take you around the city, including out here by the pasture areas. The people there are very kind. The taxi services are, like, their main job is to help tourists. So if you ever do take a tour there, you won't have to worry as much about not knowing the language, and because there will be English speakers there. The current talk of Santiago de Compostela. The parts most frequently toured, as you can see, this is sort of the courtyard of the cathedral. The parts most frequently toured, it's easy to find someone that speaks English, French, Italian, or German. And even in the cafes and restaurants, you can find English menus. The official languages of Santiago de Compostela is Spanish and Galician. Galician is very similar to Portuguese, so those who speak Galician often have a really hard time understanding English. And the climate of Santiago de Compostela, it's like the normal climate of the Spanish Atlantic coast. It has wet winters, but during June, it's frequent rain. As you can see, everything's really lush and green. So if you're going to go there, you're going to have to take an umbrella. Summer is more dry. Ooh. It's not necessarily dry, but it's not as wet as it is from September to June. And the temperatures are generally mild throughout the whole year, except for during winter. It drops, but it's not really cold like it is here in Nebraska. So Santiago de Compostela is a really amazing city, and there's so much history, and our next field trip should definitely be there.
Muy bien, un aplauso. Okay, preguntas para ella.
What was your favorite part about learning about this?
How the cathedral and the remains of St. James was found. Because it's really interesting that it was found, it's proven in records that it was found by a hermit who saw lights and heard crazy sounds coming from a forest. So that's really cool because it's actually recorded that it was found that way. Anything else? Any other questions?
Somebody else? Remember, these are part of your grade. So, why do you think it was on Sunday, that Easter Sunday only, that they were celebrating not in a morning fashion? There was bells ringing, etc.
On Easter Sunday, that was when Jesus was, I think I remember remembering correctly, that's when he was resurrected, and he, it was a time of celebration because Jesus came back in flesh, proving that, you know, he could not be destroyed sort of by
Mhm.
the people that didn't like him.
Mhm.
So that's the day of celebration because that's when he was back in the flesh.
Anybody else? Wow, okay, fabuloso. Próxima.